Fine, good morning to you all students. Hi students, how are you? I hope you all are fine and you all are doing well. So warm greetings to you all students. Welcome to our today's online class, okay? So now we are studying about chapter 11 functions. So in this chapter, half of the portions I have completed. So in this chapter, you have studied about two types of functions. Yes indeed. So what are the two types of functions? Built-in function as well as user-defined function. So what's the difference between built-in and user-defined? Built-in means while you are installing the software itself, the particular functions are predefined. So that we are calling as an predefined or built-in functions. User-defined means the user is going to define some kinds of functions. Okay, that one called as user-defined function. Okay, so built-in function I have completed till the last class. Okay, so today we are going to study about user-defined functions. Okay. So built-in or predefined function means, so while you are installing the software itself, particular functions are predefined. Then based on your wish, you can use that particular function. That is called which one? Built-in function. But user-defined function means, so it is some kind of new functions. Okay. So using that functions, if you are defining some function means, so each and every function will do some task. That is called user defined. Okay. So this kind of functions are defined by whom? User. Okay. So the user defined functions are defined by whom? User. Who is the user means the person who writes the program. Okay. That we are calling as an what? User. Okay. So inside the function you can able to give lot of input parameters as well as arguments. What do you mean by input parameters and arguments? For example, inside the function int a or a comma b comma c. So that one we are calling as an input parameters or arguments. Okay. So in user defined function also you can able to give lot of input parameters and arguments. Okay. So if you are defining some functions, so that same functions you are going to use in some other place also. Okay. So we can say this kind of function is a reusable block. What do you mean by reusable? It can be able to use again and again. First you are writing some code, the same number of lines you need to implement in some other places also. Okay, so this kind of codes you can implement in some other places. Which place you require, that place you can able to implement. That is called what? Reusable block. Okay, so how you need to get that function or how you need to implement that function to some other place means using function name. Understood? Okay. So next one is function declaration, or this is a general form of or general syntax for declaring function. Okay, so if you are going to use some kind of function in the program, so before you are going to use, you should declare the function. Understood? So before you are going to use the function, you should declare the function. Understood? So what do you mean by declaration? So variable declaration you have studied. What do you mean by variable declaration? Int a comma b comma c or float a comma b comma c. So if you are going to use the variables a, b and c, so before you are going to use the variables, you should declare the variable at the top of the program. That we are calling as in what? Variable declaration. Okay. So here is function declaration. So what do you mean by function declaration mean? You are going to use some kind of functions. So before you are going to use the function inside the program, you should declare at the top. Understood? So this is the general syntax for declaring a function. Okay. First you should mention a data type. Okay. So return data type. Then function name with parameter list. What's the first thing? First you should give the return data type. Then you should give the name of the function. So inside the name of the function you should give parameter list or arguments. Okay. Then so inside the curly brace you are going to give the main body of the function. Okay. So in this syntax they are giving some rules to be followed while declaring the function. Okay. So what are the rules you need to follow mean? First one is, first line you are declaring a return data type. Isn't it? So in the place of return data type, you should use a valid data type. What do you mean by valid data type? So what are the data types you might have studied? Integer, float, character, etc. Isn't it? So such a kind of, so valid data types you can able to use in the place of return data type. Understood? That's the first point. Then, so next one is a function name. Okay. So function name is given by the user. Okay. That's a user defined identifier. For example, I am going to write one program. So I am giving some function name. Okay, so that function name is given by myself. So I am the user. So we are calling that function name is a user defined identifier. Okay, so inside this parameter list, inside the function you are going to pass which one? Parameter list. Okay, so inside this parameter list you are going to pass variables, constants, expressions, data types, etc, etc. Okay, so but how many variables you are using, that's a not problem, but based on the number of variables you should separate each variables using comma symbol. Understood? So 2 or 3 are variables you can use inside the place of parameter list, but you should separate each of them using which symbol? Comma symbol. Okay, then next one is the body of the function. Okay, so in this body of the function you are going to write the main codings. Okay, so based on the condition this codings will run. Okay, what task you are giving inside the body of the function, so it will run and perform the task. Understood? Okay, so next one is a function prototype. Understood? So prototype is nothing but it's just like a syntax or formula. Okay, so in a C++ program, if I take any C++ program, means a single program can contain lot of functions, but how many functions are there, that is not, doesn't matter, but the program will contain only one main of function. That you might have seen in the last examples also. Okay, remain how many any kinds of functions you can use or any number of functions you can use inside the program, but a program will have only one main of function. Okay, so always the program will execute where it will execute at the first means from the main of function. Understood? The program will always execute from the main of function. Okay, so inside the main of function you can be able to write definitions, functions, or based on your wish you can write anything. Okay, so whatever things you are using inside the main of function or functions or variables or anything you should declare before you are going to use, you should declare the variables or function name. Okay, but the declaration statement always being given outside of the main of function. So last previous examples and you have studied into main of, then after the main of function you will give int a comma b, then functions, likewise lot of things you will give after the main of functions. Understood? But a program will have only one main of function, so you can able to use any number of functions, but all the number of functions you should use after the main of function. Understood? So one example they have giving, see, long fact of int comma double. Okay, so here so what's the general syntax for declaring a function? Return data type, then function name and parameter list. Okay, this is very very important. Like this they will give lot of examples and ask you to find what's the function name, what's the data type, and what's the parameters. Okay, so you should study and write this one. Listen, so here what's the data type? First one is always a data type. So what's the data type or return type? Return type or data type is similar. Okay, so what's the data type or return type? Long. Okay, what's the data type or return type? Long. Okay, so what's the next thing? Fact. Fact is a function name. Okay, first one is return data type, second one is function name. So inside the function name you are giving arguments. This one called argument. Okay, so here only you are passing the data types alone, but you are not passing any variables or constant. Okay, so how many arguments you are giving? 2. What are they? Int comma double. Okay, but you are not giving any variables inside this data types or inside the function. Understood? For that only the explanation they are giving. Long is a return type, then fact is a function name, then int and double is a arguments. Okay, so if you are giving the function like this, means while you are executing the program will give some information to the compiler. Okay, so what are the informations are given by this function to the compiler means, okay, first it will return. So this is a return type of this function becomes long. Okay, first it will pass that return data type. What's the return data type for this function? Long. Okay, then it will pass the name of the function. So what's the name of the function? Fact. Okay, then it will give the input parameters like 2 arguments. How many arguments you are passing? That arguments you need to give us a input parameter. So how many arguments? 2. What are they? Int and double. Okay, so first argument is of data type int and second argument is of data type double. Understood? Okay, so another one example they are giving. So in display of int comma int. Okay, so what's the function name here and what's the return type and how many arguments are here? This example we have return data type as int and function name as display. Then inside how many arguments they are passing? 2. What are they? Int and in. Okay. So this are here, if you are running this function means it will give information to the compiler. Compiler will give information to the computer. What are things it will give? Return type is int. Then function name is display. So inside the display of function, 2 types of arguments. What are they? Two arguments, int and in. Understood? Okay. So next one is use of void command. Okay. So in the program you might have used void main of. So what's the use of void command? Okay. So this void command mainly have 2 important purposes. Understood? This void command will have mainly 2 important purposes. Okay. First this void command will indicate it will not return any value. Okay. So void command will not return any value. Okay. So but it will declare a generic pointer. What do you mean by pointer? Pointer means it will hold the address of the particular variable. So it will hold the particular address of the variable you are declaring inside the function. Understood? So what's the voice of void command? First, this void command will not return any value. Second thing is it will declare a generic pointer. That means it will hold address of the variables. Understood? Okay. So example they have giving, see, void fun of void. So data type also you are giving us void. What's the function name? Fun. So inside the function name you are passing argument as void. Okay. So this function fun of will not return any values. Okay. So you are calling this function will not return any value because you are giving void inside the function argument. Understood? So here in the tabular column they have given lot of examples how you need to declare the or how you need to use the function. Okay, 4 different types of functions they are giving. Okay, first one is listen, display of. Okay, what's the thing here? So what's the function name here? Display of. Okay, so inside the function whether you have written any value or return value or arguments or parameters. So what do you mean by arguments or parameters? The input things you are giving inside the function. For example, display of int a comma b. So there such like your arguments you can say 2 arguments. What are they? A and b of data type in. But here you are not passing any argument inside the function. Only you are giving the function name alone. Okay. So the explanation they are giving, say display of function means calling the function without a return value and without any argument. That means here also display of simply only they have given in the display of or float display of, that like it is not given, only the function name bit without argument. There is no argument inside the function. Understood? Okay. So second thing is display of x comma y. Okay. So here, so can you find the difference between first one and second one? First one is function name is there without any argument. Second one is function name is there but you are giving 2 arguments. What are the arguments? X and y. So this program will return 2 values. What are the values? X and y. Understood? This program will return how many values? 2 values. What are they? X and y. Understood? So second one is listen, x equal to display of. So here also you are giving function name but without argument. So inside the function you are not giving any argument but the function is assigned to a value called x. So it will return some value to the x. So only they are giving calling the function without any argument. So here any arguments are not there. Understood? Yes. Next one is x equal to display of x comma y. So here what's the function name? Display of is a function name as well as, so inside the function you are giving 2 parameters. What are they? X and y. These 2 parameters will return the value of x and y. Okay, x and y, but you are assigning the function to the variable x. So we can calling the function with return value and with argument. So what's the return value here? X. What are the arguments here? X and y. Understood? Okay. So next one is accessing a function. What do you mean by access? Access means getting or taking. For example, Wi-Fi connection is there. You can say accessing the Wi-Fi. What's the meaning? Something is available means you can able to access. Okay. So this you say already you have given lot of functions. See how you can able to identify the function by the function name and also how it will return the value based on the arguments you are passing inside the function. Okay. So this while you are executing the program, the compiler will check whether you have declared the function correctly. Okay. So the compiler will check whether you have declared the function correctly or how many arguments you are giving the inside the function. Okay, so if you are giving some wrong things, or if your argument is not passed for the declaration means, so automatically this compiler will go for type conversion. So what do you mean by type conversion? Already you have studied in the 9th chapter. What do you mean by type conversion? For example, you are going to add two numbers, sum equal to a plus b. The value of a you are giving us 5 and the value of b you are giving us 6.5. So what answer you will get? 6 plus 5.5 means 11.5. But you are giving input as two different data types. What are the int as well as float. But you are getting answer as in a float. So this is called type conversion. Okay. So likewise the compiler will check whether you are giving or declaring the function correctly, or you are going to call the function correctly. If it is not means it automatically it will give the type conversion. Okay. So if the type conversion is also not possible means the program will generate error message. Understood? Okay. So next one is formal parameters and actual parameters. Okay. So what do you mean by function? Okay. What do you mean by function? Sorry, what do you mean by arguments? So arguments, other name is parameters. So arguments or parameters mean using that arguments and parameters you can able to pass the values to the program. Okay. Then after passing you need to call the function. This we are calling as an what? Function. Okay. So what are the variables you are defining inside the function is known as parameters. And also the calling the function that we are calling as an actual parameters. Understood? First you are going to declare the some function. So inside the function you will declare some arguments and parameters. Isn't it? The argument, that means what are the variables you are using inside the function, that we are calling as an which one? Formal parameter. Then inside the main of function, while you are calling the function, you are assigning some values to the parameter, that is called actual parameters. Understood what do you mean by formal parameters and actual parameters? Formal parameters means inside the functions you are passing some arguments or values. That arguments or values are called as formal parameter. Then so in that variable inside the main of function you are passing some values, that is called as which parameter? Actual parameter. Okay. So see the example program. What's the first line? Header file hash include iostream. What's the second line? Using namespace std. Third line is listen. What is this one? Int sum of int x comma y. What is this one? This line we are calling as a function. What's the general sentence for returning function? First one is data type, then function name, then parameters. Okay. So what's the return data type? Int. So what's the function name here? Sum. Then how many parameters you are passing? 2. What are they? X and y. So of data type int. Okay. So inside this function you are giving some, this is the body of the statement. What are things you are giving? Return of x plus y. So this function will return how many values? 2 values. What are they? X and y. Understood? This function will return how many values? 2 values. What are they? X and y. Okay. So next inside the main of function you are going to call the function. Okay. Listen. So inside the main of function already you have defined two variables. What are the x and y? So how many variables you are defining in the function? The same thing you need to declare in main of function also with some other variable name. Okay. So how many variables you are declaring inside the function? That number of variables you need to define inside the main of function with some other variable name. Okay. So here how many variables you are declaring? 2. What are they? X and y. But for that here inside the main of function also you are declaring how many variables? 2. What are they? A and B. Okay. So this both A and B is of data type which one? Int. Okay. Next. So here you are giving two values as a, that is two arguments x and y. So inside the main of function inside cout you are giving enter number 1. So now you are going to enter the first number. So first number what's the input? A. Then enter number 2. Okay. What's the second number? B. Okay. So first one is entering the input from the output screen. You are getting the input from the user. So for that you are giving the input Cin of A. So next one is you are going to enter the second number, that is enter number 2 for input Cin B. Next you are going to find the sum. Okay. So to print the sum they are giving the sum of. So how many variables you need to pass? So listen. So this we are calling as an actual parameter. Inside the function you are giving two variables x and y. The same thing you are going to pass the values inside the main of function. So this we are calling as a formal parameter, and inside the main of function you are calling that variable with some other name, that is called which parameter? Actual parameter. Understood the difference between formal parameter and actual parameter? Okay. So next one is default arguments. Okay, so what do you mean by default? Default means you can able to assign some default values for the parameters or arguments that we are calling as an what? What that we are calling as an what? Default argument. Okay, so what do you mean by default argument? In C++ we can able to assign some default values for the variables or arguments. Okay, so while you are giving default values, while you are compiling the program, there is a chance for missing some arguments. Okay, otherwise while you are calling the function, you can able to miss some kind of arguments. Okay, so already you are defining 2 or 3 arguments, but now you are going to call the function. So if the arguments are inside the function, inside the main function, you are going to call the function, isn't it? So while you are calling the function, some values are missing in the main function means automatically the function will allocate some default values. That is called what? Functions. Okay, so the default value is always given in the form of variable initialization. What is variable initialization? Like this, void default value. So here what's the return type? Return type is void. And what's the name of the function? Default value. So inside the default value function they are giving 2. What are they? N1 and N2. The value of N1 is 10 and value of N2 is 100. That means you are going to assign the value, default value of N1 is 10 and default value of N2 is 100. Okay, the same thing you can also able to give like this. See, default value of x comma y. What's the meaning? You are going to pass 2 arguments. So next line you are passing or calling the function with 2 values. What are the values? 200 comma 150. Okay, so listen. So already you are defining 2 arguments, but in this example you are going to pass only 1 value. So you will get a error message. So how many number of arguments is there? Based on that argument you should pass the value. Okay, so always the value should be passed based on the number of arguments. So and also one thing, always you should assign the values from right to left. Understood? Always you should assign the values from right to left. For example here int n1 equal to 10 and n2. So here without assigning the value to the right, first itself they are assigning the value to the left. So you will get a error message. Always you should assign the value from the right. See the second example, the values they are assigning from the right. So that one we are calling as a default argument. So understood? So what are the portions I have taught today? Please study and write in a computer notebook. Thank you, student.